Welcome to the Paladin 1 to 100 leveling skills guide. I'll be going over all of your skills as you train to be the least able to make jokes about, better than the rest of them, but also hopefully kill your enemies along the way. Watch as it go from this to this. This is a beginner-focused series, aimed to help those new to Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO genre, or still just need a little help. In that same vein, this will be focused on your actions and how to use them. We'll not be going deep into optimization, instead focused on the general play and giving general opening rotations. We will go through these together in order to help new players understand the process. If you wish to push your play further, there are further places you could research the job. The goal here is to drop players in on the ground level so they can make strides to improve themselves. Tooltips are broken up by expansion and that expansion's level cap. So level 50 for A Realm Reborn, 60 for Heaven's Ward, 70 for Stormblood, 80 for Shadowbringers, 90 for Endwalker, and our final level cap of 100 in Dawntrail. I recommend all players add Sprint and Limit Break to their hotbars, both found in the General tab of the Actions menu. And as for how my hotbars build, it'll make sense at 100. Just put your skills on your hotbar so that you're comfortable as you play. Everyone has their own way of doing things. If you want more info on the how and why I set my UI, check the description for a video about it. Finally, keep in mind this is an active MMO. Patches can and will change jobs. Check the description for a quick overview of each patch's changes or special notes. With all that out of the way, please support me in whatever way you can, check my links below, and let's begin. Paladin is a tank job all about big defensives and support. Good at protecting itself and others. You have some of the strongest single button defensives and a higher base defense thanks to a shield reducing incoming damage. Overall, you end up being the most basic tank of the bunch. Your offensive kit has changed to be far simpler, while still having a unique aspect to your filler. You will be the only tank with a real ranged attack, and I don't mean the early level shield lob. You otherwise don't need to deal with much rotationally until you try to up your game. Then you get to learn a very specific filler cycle. To play a Gladiator, you either start as one, or pick the class up in the Old Dog Gladiators Guild after completion of your level 10 class quest as your first class. Let's get into the finer details of each skill. Level 1, Tank Mastery. Before we even get into the skills, we have to mention that tanks are sturdier than any other role. You have a built-in 20% damage mitigation, higher returns to HP from Vitality, and it says bonus to damage based on strength, but you're still weaker than any average DPS. Just keep in mind, being more defensive doesn't mean you can just stand in all avoidable damage. You still need to dodge. Level 1, Fast Blade. This is a very basic attacking GCD. It deals a 150 potency hit to the target. Nothing impressive, but it gets us started. Level 2, Fight or Flight. This is an OGCD buff that has a 60-second cooldown, increasing all of our damage by 25% for 20 seconds. The goal of Fight or Flight is to use this on cooldown as much as possible, and fit in all your best attacks within the timer. Just make sure you keep attacking and use Fight or Flight as much as possible. Level 4, Riot Blade. This is our first combo attack. It does 100 potency unless you use it after Fast Blade. Then it will do 260 potency of damage. Combos will flash their borders when available, like so. You should always do your combos, and going forward I will only mention potencies in combos. Alternate Fast Blade and Riot Blade to do damage. Level 6, Total Eclipse. This is an AoE, or Area of Effect, attack. It does 120 potency of damage to all enemies within 5 yalms of your character. When there are 3 or more enemies, you should swap to using Total Eclipse over your combo. This doubles for both doing damage and ensuring you keep enmity. The more enemies there are, the better AoE gets. So the more enemies there are, the more enemies you pull to fight, the stronger this attack gets. It's 120 potency to every enemy, not spread across all enemies. The better the tank you become, the more enemies you want to be gathering together. This increases the damage of both you and your allies. As a side note, this will break your single target combo if used between strikes. Level 8 is our first role action, Rampart. Tank role actions are some of the most important role actions in the game. Please learn what all of these do. The description has a video about these skills, as does the card in the corner. Please learn, but I will not be going deep into details here. Level 10, Iron Will. This ability comes with a new UI element, a gem that glows when the skill is activated. If you do not see this gem glowing, hit Iron Will to turn it on. This is known as your tank stance or enmity stance. It will become Release Iron Will when activated, signaling that pressing the button again will turn the stance off. With the exception of 8 or more player content, you always want this on. You are a tank, and you are the one all enemies should be attacking. Iron Will gives you a massive enmity multiplier to all actions you do, ensuring you keep enemies eating your face. Enmity being a measure of how much enemies want to murder you. In your party list, when targeting an enemy, the enmity levels of your party is shown. You want the lead as a tank, with an A. The enemy list also has colored indicators for current enmity levels. Red square means you're in the lead. Anything else, you're not in the lead. For larger party content, that usually means there are multiple tanks. 2 to 3 of them usually, depending on which content. You absolutely do not want to be fighting your co-tanks for aggro. One of you is in charge of the boss, the other is in charge of picking up adds, additional enemies, or the boss when the other tank is otherwise not available to tank. Generally, whoever puts their enmity stance on first when entering a duty is in charge of the boss. Every tank has an Iron Will, but the name and icon will differ. You'll get used to the icons and animations as you go, but it's a rule to follow. Can also go based on which tank has more gear and HP. Ultimately though, the best way to choose is to communicate with text. If you play on console, buy a cheap $5 USB keyboard, it's worth it. Beyond who is tanking the boss, you want to be ready to take the boss if the other tank dies. Turn on Iron Will even if you're the designated off tank, a bit after the fight begins. This will ensure that you are second in enmity above the DPS and healers. If the tank dies, the boss doesn't start hitting the rest of your allies. It will immediately start hitting you, saving your team. Also make sure to get into position, facing the boss away from your team. The other thing to worry about is when entering duties with level sync. If you ever hit a level sync, you will enter the duty with your stance off. Make sure to turn on Iron Will when you enter a dungeon. If it's multi-tank, figure out which of you is the main tank. Otherwise it boils down to, turn it on, then hit enemies as hard as you can. Level 10, Shield Bash. This is a little bit of crowd control, or the idea that you can prevent enemies from doing stuff for a bit. It does a puny 100 potency to a target, and stuns them for 6 seconds with diminishing returns. A second hit will cut the time in half, with a third use cutting it in half again. Afterwards, the enemy will become immune to stuns entirely. Though there is sometimes an invisible decay involved, the problem is you almost never want to be using Shield Bash. In 2 levels we get a better stun called Low Blow. It has a short cooldown, but as an OGCD it has a very low opportunity cost. Shield Bash being single target means you're massively hampering your damage with groups of enemies. A dead enemy deals less damage than a stunned enemy, with AoE attacks killing multiple enemies. Tanks aren't the level of power of a DPS, but they're not lightweights. When it comes to reducing damage, you have outright better options than Shield Bash. Boss fights quickly become entirely immune to stuns by the time you get out of a Realm Reborn dungeons. There will be the exception here or there. The exceptions, you have a better skill that doesn't waste attacking time. I won't say there are 0 uses of Shield Bash, but they're not very common at the best of times. If spamming Shield Bash on a group of enemies is better than just using Total Eclipse, then you have bigger issues to be sorting out, like proper cooldown usage, or other players not using their own toolkits. We have another role action at level 12, Low Blow. This is the Shield Bash replacement. If you need more than just one stun for stopping AoEs, Shield Bash is there, but it's not your main stun. There is also Provoke at level 15. Level 15, Shield Lob. You do not automatically obtain this skill. This is a class quest skill. Especially as a tank, do your class and job quests. I will not verbally mention every skill that is a quest skill, but in the top left is a denotion of this. Please just do your quests. As for Shield Lob itself, this is an engagement and positioning tool. From within 20 yalms away, you can throw your shield at your enemies for a weak 100 potency of damage. It has a further enmity multiplier. Use this to initiate combat. It drags enemies towards you as you run towards them, letting you use an AoE sooner. In bosses, position them in the middle of the arena with rare exception. There's also the chance you lose enmity on a target. Let's say the black mage in the back there has taken the enmity lead on an enemy. You can shield lob to quick grab the enemy and get the lead back. Otherwise, you don't want to use this much. Like shield bash, it's single target and weak. Other than initiating fights and catching a straying target, the range of the skill is not that helpful. You don't want to be out of attacking range, and anytime you are, you won't be out of range for long. Later on, we get better options for range attacking that near entirely replace shield lob. On the plus side, shield lob does not break combos. Raw actions come in, giving us Interject at level 18 and Reprisal at level 22. Level 26, Rage of Halone. This is the third hit to our combo, comboing off of Riot Blade. It does 330 potency of damage to a target. There isn't much more to say on this. Make sure you are always ending your single target combos with this. To obtain the Paladin job, you must first reach level 30 and complete the level 30 Gladiator quest. Additionally, complete the main scenario quest, Self-Management, which is at level 20 in the story. Return to the guild and the quest should be there for you. Level 30, Spirits Within. This is a simple bit of extra damage for us. Spirits Within has a 30-second cooldown to do 270 potency of damage to a target. Just use this anytime you can, no matter what the situation is. It's free damage thanks to being an OGCD ability. Use this under Fight or Flight too. Being a 30-second cooldown, you will get 2 Spirits Within for every Fight or Flight, so every other use will not be buffed. Arm's Length is level 32, and let me just stress this one is a defensive cooldown. Do not ignore this skill. Go watch the Raw Actions guide if you need to learn why. Level 35, Oath Mastery and Sheltron. Oath Mastery gives our little gem a big upgrade into a full-on bar. Iron Will is now a big shield embellishment when activated. A lot more obvious than a small gem. The real part of the skill is the bar itself. Filling the bar is done by hitting anything with auto attacks. You get 5 gauge for every auto attack. Upon entering any duty, your bar begins full. This is to make the associated gauge skills immediately available. Paladin will begin every duty with a full 100 gauge. So let's talk about the first skill that uses gauge, which is Sheltron. Sheltron will reduce damage by 15% for 4 seconds, at the cost of 50 gauge. This sounds terrible, but it's better than it sounds. The short length makes it hard to use in trash mobs, but not impossible. It's better than not using it at all, and auto attacks will fill it back up anyway. In boss fights, at least later on, it will be perfect fodder for blocking tank busters. Big hits that do a lot of damage, even to tanks. Due to your auto attacks occurring often, you'll get a lot of uses of Sheltron, as if this is a 30-second cooldown. Don't be afraid to use this often for reducing any damage. You'll almost always have this available for any situation you could ask for. Level 38, Sentinel. Sentinel is a much more typical piece of mitigation. It has a long 2-minute cooldown, lasts for 15 seconds, and reduces all damage by 30%. This is a must-use for the highest points of damage in a duty. Pulled 10 enemies, pop Sentinel, and maybe even Sheltron once. In the 15-second timer, you'll get much of that gauge back. While you wouldn't purposefully hold Sentinel for a long time, you want to be smarter with your uses. Once you pull all the enemies you intend to pull, pop it off while the enemies are at their most dangerous. Make sure an attack is a tank buster for Sentinel to block. Keep in mind, you don't want to use cooldowns before an encounter. You waste time on them that way, and with a cooldown this strong, every second of damage reduction counts. Level 40, Prominence. This is a combo for our AoE. Total Eclipse into Prominence, which does a much stronger 220 potency per enemy hit. This makes AoE spam stronger than single target attacks on 2 enemies, but it's fine to stick to 3 or more enemies. Most jobs tend to AoE on 3 or more. Just make sure you're keeping enmity. Prominence is a huge boost in power next to Total Eclipse. Level 45, Cover. Cover costs 50 gauge, losing yourself a potential Sheltron, has a 2-minute cooldown, and has a range of 20 yalms. You must select an ally and hit the skill to cover them. This causes all damage that player takes to transfer to you, so long as they stay within range as displayed by the very faint tether. The benefits are obvious in that you're making another player take no damage for 12 seconds, or until out of range. Some players will take a lot of avoidable damage. Sometimes this leads them to take vulnerability stacks and take even more damage. Cover ensures the one team member with high HP and defense is the one taking the brunt of what might otherwise kill the weakened player. With some good positioning and very quick reflexes, this can save lives at the risk of your own. That's where the problems begin. Depending on how much a player is messing up, they could mess up so bad they take enough damage to kill you. Overlapping AoEs or some other potential issue. Debuffs they receive under cover also transfer to you. Depending on the role of the player, it can be hard to cover them. Mages are likely to stand far away from the boss even when they shouldn't, so you'll need to move at least a little closer to be able to reach with cover. Cover shines better in 8-player trials and raids, especially the high-end ones. When co-tanking on Paladin, you can cover the main tank. You'll take the damage for them for a few seconds, all without a tank swap. There are actual uses, it's just difficult to use for an average player. The better your reaction time, the more likely you are to be able to save lives. It's also just unlikely to be a situation you run into, which is why I don't have many clips of it. Our final role action is Shirk at level 48. Level 50, Circle of Scorn. On a short 30-second cooldown, this does a 140 potency AoE around yourself with a 5-yard range. In addition to the base hit, all enemies affected will receive a dot, damage over time, for 15 seconds. This does 30 potency on a server tick, which is every 3 seconds. As a result, we have 5 ticks of 30 potency, or a 150 potency dot, totaling the power to 290 potency per enemy. This is an ability, so you can weave it between weapon skills with no loss. Since it's free damage, you want to use it for single target. Being an AoE, its true strength is definitely in AoE situations. Even at level 50, most enemies will live for 15 seconds, or close to it, so you're getting a stronger hit than even Prominence on all enemies. It's otherwise no different to any other OGCT attack like Spirits Within. Throw it out under Fight or Flight when you can, and otherwise on cooldown. Level 50, Hallowed Ground. This has the longest cooldown in the game at 420 seconds, 7 whole minutes. Hallowed Ground grants you 10 seconds of complete invincibility. The only exceptions are typically high-end raid mechanics, so you can't cheese some sort of normally instant wipe mechanics. Cover also goes through Hallowed Ground. You will take full damage if for whatever reason you need to cover during Hallowed. The initial reaction most people have is, this is an emergency button. Quite the opposite. What's the point in such a strong button you'll almost never use? This button can prevent the emergency to begin with. Stood in a bunch of AoEs and now you're about to die, and so now it's an emergency? If you used Hallowed Ground before you stood in those AoEs, and stood in them on purpose this time, you would have taken no damage. If you go and pull 20 enemies, it's very safe because you're immune to damage for 10 seconds. Then as Hallowed runs out, you can pop Sentinel, or Rampart, or anything now that damage is coming in. By the time the enemies die, you'll still have some left, or just about be running out. Tell your healer before you start pulling, hey, I'm gonna use my invuln, and they know they don't even need to heal you. Just keep in mind that if you have a white mage, they have Holy. This is 6 seconds of stun on average to all enemies in a trash pool. You want to invuln after the Holy stuns, if possible. But due to how fast enemies die early on, you probably will just Hallowed beforehand. Given most dungeon runs will go over 15 minutes or even more, you will usually get at least 2 uses per run. The pace of the dungeon and ability level of your group are factors in this, but that's far more than 0 if emergencies never happen. Plus, Hallowed Ground is easy to waste in emergencies. Press it as you die, and you lose the use entirely due to there being a short animation between button press and the buff applying. The cooldown will still count as used, despite you dying. If you don't release your body to the start of the dungeon, you're not getting it back for 7 minutes. Emergencies are easier to mark out in content like trials and raids. Specific mechanics that might kill the party that you can survive through. Proactively using it against tank busters is also valid. You may not get to spam it, but you can use it to huge effect. Let's finally talk about openers, which keep in mind are a single target kind of thing. We have 50 levels of skills, but overall not much to do when it comes to an opener. A buff, a couple off-global attacks, and that's really it. This makes it easier for us to weave in defensive buffs as needed, which will otherwise not be shown in openers. What mitigation you can afford and when will depend entirely on each fight. Fights all tend to start the same, but the overall pace is often very different per fight. Offensively, openers are much more one-size-fits-all. Pre-pull, Iron Will if applicable, Shield Lob, Fast Blade, Riot Blade, Fight or Flight, Rage of Halone, Circle of Scorn, Spirits Within. Before we start fighting, we obviously want our stance on. If it's a multi-tank duty, only one of you needs the stance on to start. Turn yours on later otherwise. Shield Lob will then be used to pull the boss to the middle of the arena. Positioning is important. Then start going through your basic combo to use Fight or Flight before Rage of Halone. Rage is a strong hit, good to buff. The important part of this is getting our OGCDs used in the middle of Fight or Flight. Their specific timings don't need to be here, but we have so few tools, it's not worth worrying about yet. We'll see why we place them in specific spots later on. Just go through your basic combo over and over, while using your OGCDs on cooldown. Again, also throw in mitigation as needed. When it comes to AoE, an opener is a bit of a misnomer. There is a lot more going on with trash mobs than with bosses. There's the act of pulling enemies and a lengthy run. This is especially true for wall-to-wall pulls. The better you get as a tank, the more you will pull every possible enemy. You're going to rush to grab every enemy as soon as you can, and stop running as soon as you grab the final group. Then you're going to burst, for as little you have. Right now you just Fight or Flight, then spam your AoE combo. Throw out Circle of Scorn too, and Spirits Within on whatever seems to have higher HP. It's a single target hit, so not entirely needed, but free damage is free damage. Mitigation is even more important in wall-to-wall pulling. Be sure to use something strong like Sentinel when you stop. Again, not shown here because each pull can be different. There can be a forced single pull of weak enemies that calls for an AoE opener still, and so on. Just make sure you group the enemies tightly together so your team can kill them too. We'll develop our openers a lot more as we expand our skills, but when it comes to our Heavensward toolkit, the spotlight is on our other skills. Level 52, Bulwark. The return of a previously removed skill. On a 90-second cooldown, you will block all attacks for 10 seconds. If you haven't already noticed, randomly you will block attacks with your shield. You can block both physical and magical attacks, giving Paladin passive defense no other tank really has. Bulwark guarantees these blocks trigger when you need them most. Blocks tend to mitigate around 20% of damage, so assuming you would have gotten 0 blocks for the duration, that's a 20% mitigation for 10 seconds. But because some blocks are likely to happen, your effective reduction is lower. That doesn't make this a bad skill though. This can be used to great effect in trash pulls. For bosses and tank busters, you might block anyway, but guaranteeing the block is very useful. Pretend this is a less effective Rampart, but plenty strong on its own and on a shorter cooldown. Level 54, Enhanced Fight or Flight, and Goring Blade. This is our first and only example of action change settings for Paladin. While you can make Goring Blade its own button regardless of which setting you pick, you can have Fight or Flight change if you so choose. I will be keeping it off, but keep this option in mind. From now on, pressing Fight or Flight will grant you Goring Blade ready for 30 seconds. This allows you to use Goring Blade a single time. Goring is a global cooldown weapon skill that does not break combos. It does a big 700 potency hit to a single enemy. Since it is tied to Fight or Flight, make sure this gets used while Fight or Flight is up. It's such a big hit even, it is stronger than AoE on up to 5 targets. Hit whatever enemy seems stronger or has more HP, so everything dies around the same time. Level 56, Divine Veil. On a 90-second cooldown, you and everyone within 30 yalms of yourself will be given a shield with 10% of your maximum HP. That's your personal HP, not each individual party member. You yourself also get the shield, and it lasts for 30 seconds. This can be used selfishly to minor effect in trash pools, a little bit of HP on top to keep you going. If you're nowhere near a boss, you might as well make use of it. The best use of this will be during bosses. The further we get into the game, the more bosses will actually become a threat. especially dedicated trials and raids. Most all bosses by this point have raid-wide damage, that being damage that hits all players in the fight. You will pop Divine Veil to protect the rest of your party. Your DPS and healer allies will be the ones to die to those more than you ever will, especially if they took an avoidable hit beforehand. There's also mechanical damage. Most fight mechanics will also do damage to the party, while not having a cast you can reduce the damage of with something like Reprisal. This makes Divine Veil flexible. You can reduce damage from any and all damage types without needing a cast bar. If someone is going to take damage, the shield will be spent first. Make sure to start using this often to experiment where it will best be spent. Level 58, Chivalry. Riot Blade and Spirits Within have been given an upgrade. Both of these will now restore MP. Riot Blade restoring 1000 MP, and Spirits Within 500 MP. Note that Riot Blade requires you to use it in a combo. You can't spam Riot Blade alone to generate MP. This upgrade is because of the other skill we get at this level. Level 58, Clemency. Costing a massive 4000 MP, this is a single target heal on a 1.5 second cast time. This restores 1000 potency of healing to the target. If you heal a party member, you will also be healed for 50% of the power of the heal given to your team member. This is not something you ever want to use. When solo, sure, Clemency to stay alive. When in a party, you want to be able to avoid it. A lot of Paladins, for some reason, think any missing HP is cause to use Clemency. No, that's the healer's job. You're not helping them. Cooldowns are more important, and killing enemies reduces damage far better. If nobody is dying due to lack of heals, if you are living just fine, you don't need to start spamming Clemency. Your healer has a lot of tools for healing. Let them use them. If the healer is new, you aren't giving them a chance to learn. That isn't to say there's no uses for Clemency. Let's take the example of a yes, someone did die, the healer. You can't completely replace them, but adjusting your rotation to spam Riot Blade combos, you can become a worse healer. Go watch the Shadowbringers version of this video and the section on Clemency. While recording, I managed to get a run where the healer died and we still finished the boss fight purely from Clemency. Let me just also warn here, don't use Clemency as an excuse to refuse to wipe a run. Know when an act like that is warranted, or when you should just die on purpose and start over with your full party. Clemency will never be a default reaction. If my HP is dropping low, I will assume that was intentional. If people aren't healed, I assume this is intentional. Until the moment we die, I trust the healer has a plan. Trust the healer until you are a corpse. The penalty for death is low anyway. Level 60, Rage of Halone Mastery and Royal Authority. Rage of Halone Mastery upgrades it into Royal Authority. It's up to a 360 potency attack when used in a combo. It's nice, arguably worse animation, but other than that, it doesn't change how we play the job. All we have to do for a level 60 opener is add in Goring Blade. We can fit it in basically anywhere within Fight or Flight, though we are going to move Fight or Flight back by 1 GCD because of Goring and party members. Heaven's Void levels is where more jobs are going to start getting party buffs. These will up your damage too, so putting our big hits under party buffs will be a great boon. Plus, buffs are multiplicative, meaning they make each other better. As a result, we'll Fight or Flight after Royal Authority to time it with these buffs. This is our normal timing for Fight or Flight anyway, so it's good to get used to now. For AoE, our entire thought process is on whether we include Goring Blade. The thing is, if you're doing wall-to-wall pulls, you're going to be pulling far more than 4 enemies at once. Many normal pulls even have 4 or more enemies. Goring Blade is not going to be strong enough due to being single target only, so our opener did not change. Let's get moving into Stormblood levels and skills. The tools we get there are far more game-changing, though unfortunately not as many of the key ones we need. Level 62, Intervention. This is near entirely replacing cover. While Intervention loses out on the pure strength of cover, there's no real downsides. Costing 50 gauge and having a 30 yalm range, 50% larger than cover, the target of this ability will take 10% less damage for 6 seconds. If Rampart or Sentinel are active, this becomes a 20% damage reduction. This cannot be used on yourself. The niche uses of cover remain, but intervention is just a million times more accessible for general usage. This doesn't come at a risk to your life, but it's not nearly as effective at saving the target. A damage reduction can save them, but it's not a guarantee anymore. Maybe it's just my experience, but you really notice how often players stand miles away, even when it's a bad idea, once you start trying to use cover and intervention. Pop this on your co-tank for tank busters you can't afford to cover. Some bosses attack both tanks, or there's two bosses. Or an ad. In these situations, you cover, you might die. Intervention protects your friend without your safety being lost. If you have gauge to spare and you think you need to reduce an ally's damage, throw them an intervention, especially if Rampart or Sentinel is already running. Don't pop them just to make intervention stronger though. Regardless, reduce damage of a single target wherever you need. This is like giving Sheltron to a party member. Level 64, Divine Magic Mastery and Holy Spirit. This is a bit of quality of life and real usage. All MP costs have been cut in half, and you can't have your cast interrupted by taking damage. If you did use Clemency at all, you may have noticed some casts got cancelled due to taking damage. The real usage is from the buff to Royal Authority. Completing a combo will give you Divine Might, which allows you to cast Holy Spirit instantly and stronger. Also Holy Circle, which is in Shadowbringers. You have 30 seconds to use this buff. Holy Spirit costs 1000 MP and has a 1.5 second cast time. Holy Spirit does 300 potency of damage to a target, or 400 potency when under Divine Might. This is our replacement for ranged attacks as anything more than a trash pulling tool. You'll still continue to shield lob anytime there's movement involved, like during trash pulls, but generally, this is a way better option. If you need to disengage from a boss and attack from a ranged position, you will Holy Spirit instead of shield lob. Rotationally, use it only after getting Divine Might. 400 potency isn't something to skip over. That's higher than any hit of your normal combo, and has no cast time. Though you don't have to use it immediately. Consider that it is a 30-second buff. If in the next 5 seconds you have to dodge out of the way of an attack, hold that Divine Might until the dodge. You can continue to keep uptime and use Divine Might before the next Royal Authority. Summarized, make sure you spend every single Divine Might you get, and this will replace Shield Lob as a mid-fight ranged option. Though keep in mind, being out of melee range for any significant time likely means you're out of range too often. Level 66, Intervene. This is our first and only skill with charges, meaning it can store multiple uses. The max charges is 2 for Intervene. Each charge has a 30-second cooldown for a total 60 seconds. The moment you use a charge, the next one begins to charge up. As for Intervene itself, it does a rushing attack of 150 potency. It's not very strong on its own. The main use is as a gap closer. It has a 20 yalm range, causing you to rush the target with a short animation lock. You don't need to stay away from the boss for any significant amount of time. Run out of range of whatever AoE is making you walk out of range, hit Intervene, and immediately start melee attacking again. If you know that there's a need to disengage or some kind of knockback effect, use one of your charges and hold on to the other for when it happens. This way you don't waste charges by not using them, but still keep one on hand for gap closing. This is good to do even if you have Divine Might for a Holy Spirit cast. Also, please do not use this to pull trash or bosses. Bring the boss into the middle of the arena. We aren't using Holy Spirit just because it's a strong start. Placements of bosses matter, and getting it in range for your party matters. For trash, you could get too far ahead of your healer for them to help you, even if they sprint. Level 68, Requiescat. This is an OGCD with a 60-second cooldown, the same cooldown as Fight or Flight. It deals 320 potency to a single target, and gives 4 stacks of Requiescat. These stacks make Holy Spirit instant cast, and do double the damage, 600 potency. If you have both Requiescat and Divine Might up, Divine Might is used first. This is important to remember for your rotation. Otherwise, you can do a combo, pop Fight or Flight and Requiescat during it, Goring Blade for your biggest hit, then Holy Spirit 5 times for some really good damage. For now in AoE, Requiescat isn't that great. get used to using Requiescat anyway. In a few more levels, this will be very important to have practiced, even if you don't use the Holy Spirits. It's otherwise at least free damage on one enemy. Don't be fooled by the long length of the buff. This is a big chunk of your damage, and you'll be using it immediately. Level 70, Passage of Arms. On a 2-minute cooldown, Passage of Arms causes you to hunker down and block all attacks. You also channel magic wings of protection with the floor shining behind you at an 8 yalm radius. Anyone standing within this shining space has all damage reduced by 15%. This can last for 18 seconds, but will immediately be cancelled if you're moving upon hitting the button or at any point after hitting the button. The issue is, channeling it for more than a moment tends to be really bad. Sure, for boss ultimates and 8-man duties, you can sit there and just hold the shield. The bosses can't be attacked during their ultimate attacks. Reducing that damage is a good use, but not the best use. The best use is to put you back to the party, hit Passage of Arms, then immediately cancel it. Notice the buff on your allies. Despite the animation being immediately cancelled or potentially not even appearing, the buff does get applied for a few seconds. It's a very short duration. It's like perfect parrying an attack for your team. It's a difficult maneuver to perform if you're the main tank, but makes Passage a far more usable skill than not. Let's talk about our next opener. We got a few new attacks and a new feature in Requiescat. That's going to be a large extension to our opener, one we carry all the way to level cap. We'll begin to double weave Fight or Flight with Requiescat in order to get both buffs running, then immediately go into our Holy Spirit spam to use our Requiescat buff. One of them will also be the Divine Might use, since that is unfortunately always used first. After the first Holy Spirit, weave in both Circle of Scorn and Spirits Within. All party buffs will be for sure running by this point, maximizing their power. We'll also weave in Intervene afterwards, one per GCD. If you need to hold onto a use for a later knockback or general downtime, skip one of these uses, then end on Goring Blade once our magic spam is done. Beyond that, every time you do a full combo, make sure you're using Holy Spirit. Remember to also be using Circle of Scorn and Spirits Within every 30 seconds, not just doing it within burst every 60 seconds. For AoE, there is once again no reason to go over it. All of our new skills are single target stuff. Feel free to use Requiescat and Intervene in AoE situations for free damage. Just be careful you don't animation lock yourself into an enemy AoE. The damage isn't worth it if you're taking a ton of damage in exchange. Let's move on to the Shadowbringers skills. This is where things are going to finally start fleshing out our AoE, along with other skills. Level 72, Enhanced Prominence. Prominence will now give us a few extra benefits. Firstly, it will give us 1000 MP back. That's one time, not per enemy. Additionally, it will also grant us Divine Might, which is exactly the same. It will remove the cast time of Holy Spirit and Holy Circle, while also boosting the potency. The difference is, we can finally talk about Holy Circle. Level 72, Holy Circle. About time we got an AoE magic. Holy Circle has the same cast and cost as Holy Spirit, but it's a 5 yalm AoE around yourself, similar to your AoE combo. Its power is 100 potency at base, which is terrible. Under Divine Might, it does 250 potency to every enemy, or a greater 350 when under Requiescat. As a result, we can now Requiescat for Holy Circle spam. Put up Fight or Flight too for even further damage. This is why I said to practice Requiescat in trash pulls earlier. Otherwise, Divine Might essentially turns your AoE into a 3-hit combo. Total Eclipse into Prominence, then use Holy Circle. Let me emphasize again quick that you really should pop Fight or Flight into Requiescat the moment you have gathered up every enemy you intend to fight. The cooldown is so short, by the time you hit the next encounter, it will be back up. It's a big chunk of damage for free. Level 74, Enhanced Sheltron. Sheltron now lasts for 6 seconds. It's really simple, a really small boost, but it is a 50% length boost on paper. That's a good bit of extra damage negated for your most spammed cooldown. Level 76, Sword Oath, Atonement, Supplication, and Sepulchre. Sword Oath gives a buff to Royal Authority, essentially extending the combo. For 30 seconds you are granted Atonement Ready. Naturally, this is used for Atonement, a 360 potency hit. This leads into Supplication Ready, changing the Atonement button into Supplication, a 380 potency hit. Supplication will then lead into Sepulchre, doing 400 potency. All 3 hits give 400 MP back. Due to this being buff-based, this self-contained combo can be weaved in at any point during any combo. You can alternate your base combo and Atonement combo without either breaking the other's combo. Use your Atonement combo before your next Royal Authority. It's a big increase to our MP economy and damage in single target. The change this has on our opener and filler phases is significant, so we'll want to talk about that. I'll save it for during the opener talk though. Level 80, Enhanced Requiescat and Confiteor. Enhanced Requiescat adds an extra buff of Confiteor Ready for 30 seconds. Not that you need that long. Confiteor is a massive hit you want to be using under Requiescat. It deals 420 potency and a 5 yalm AoE on a target, 168 potency to every additional enemy. Under Requiescat, that power is boosted to 920 potency, 368 on every additional enemy. One of your 5 Holy Spirits, or Holy Circles in the case of doing AoE, will be replaced with Confiteor. Ideally, always make it the first one. Every time you Requiescat, you will Confiteor. That's going to be under Fight or Flight too. Make sure to target the enemy closest to the middle of the pack, so long as they are not a huge enemy. You want to aim this to hit as many enemies as you can, and the middle enemy tends to be the best spot to start. So now let's discuss the opener. It gets quite a bit bigger with the Atonement combo added. What might seem weird is that there is a Holy Spirit at the end, rather than all 4 after Confiteor. This is due to muscle memory I'm going to start instilling in you now. Later on, this is correct. Right now, it is better to use it before the Atonement combo, so keep that in mind if you want to try to be more optimal in level 80 duties. As for the Y, at level 100, Divine Might is equal in potency to the average of the Atonement combo. Any other order, and Sepulchre will be pushed out of Fight or Flight. The big changes are what Atonement does to our filler phase. After we finish our opening burst, we're going to end up changing our loop a bit. Instead of going Royal Authority into doing the full Atonement combo and the Divine Might cast, we're going to hold it. This way, when Fight or Flight comes off of cooldown, our strongest attacks are available. This is the suggested loop post-burst phase. You do Royal Authority into Atonement only because of alignment deep into a fight. This is optimizing that isn't obvious without doing the rotation for an extended period of time. We are otherwise delaying our strong hits as long as we can, so that the moment we have a Fight or Flight window, they will be buffed, instead of something weaker like Fast Blade. We have 3 GCDs we need to fit into our Fight or Flight windows, with priority to these last 3 GCDs. You can consider these last 3 a priority system. If Holy Spirit would push Sepulchre out of Fight or Flight, focus on the Atonement combo. If you can get both Sepulchre and Holy Spirit in, prioritize getting those before going back to the earlier Atonement combo GCDs. For AoE openers, we simply add in Holy Circle thanks to Divine Might, and Confiteor will replace the first Requiescat Holy Circle. Divine Might is a hugely important tool we gained rotationally, but we otherwise don't see big changes for an opener or burst. Shadowbringers gave us a big change for our combat prowess. Endwalker is going to be a bit more defensive with an explosive end. Level 82. Sheltron Mastery and Holy Sheltron. Sheltron is being massively buffed in Holy Sheltron. First, the duration is increased to 8 seconds for the 15% mitigation. Secondly, for 4 seconds, the original base length of Sheltron, damage is reduced by a further 15% thanks to Knight's Resolve. That's roughly 28% damage reduction for 4 seconds, since mitigation is multiplicative, not additive. This leads to slight diminishing returns. On top of that, we have Knight's Benediction. This is a 12-second heal over time, or HOT effect, for 250 potency, totaling to 1000 potency of healing. That's an entire Clemency use every use of Holy Sheltron. Supplement other cooldowns with your constant Holy Sheltron usage, and you're getting a Sentinel level reduction for a few seconds. Slightly weaker Rampart for a few more. The healing on top is the icing on the cake. Just make sure you're using Holy Sheltrons 12 seconds apart if you can. Make use of that heal. But it is understandable if you need to use it back to back once the main Sheltron effect runs out. Things get rough in the first few Endwalker dungeons. Level 82, Enhanced Intervention. Intervention has also been buffed up the same ways. 8-second duration and Knight's Resolve has been added, giving the target 10% reduction for 4 seconds. It's a little weaker than the Sheltron version, but expected. Knight's Benediction is also here, being the same 250 potency hot for 12 seconds. Now any using of Intervention is far stronger, closing the gap between it and cover. Though again, some different use cases between the two. Level 84, Divine Magic Mastery 2. This adds a 400 potency self-heal to Holy Spirit, Holy Circle, and Confiteor. 2.5 of these is the same power as a Clemency, which means you should be avoiding Clemency even more now. You'll be self-healing just by doing damage, with the more focused burst healing saved for only true emergencies. Level 84, Melee Mastery. This is a basic power boost to a bunch of our attacks, but poorly worded. It says the base potencies of Riot Blade, Royal Authority, and Holy Spirit, but increases the combo potencies as well. Divine Might and Requiescat potencies too. Overall, just basically upping our power levels a bit. Level 86, Spirits Within Mastery and Expiacion. Spirits Within is now Expiacion, which is more than just a power boost. Spirits Within was a basic single target attack with MP regen. Expiacion is an AoE for 500 potency of damage on the first target, and 180 potency to all enemies within 5 yalms of the initial target. You're aiming Confiteor to the middle of the pack already, so you should have no problems aiming this too. Besides being an AoE now and being far better in trash pools, use cases are the same. Level 88, Enhanced Divine Veil. Divine Veil now takes care of a bit of healing when being applied to allies. Any ally affected by the shield of Divine Veil will receive 400 potency of healing. If anyone was missing HP before a raid wide, be it from taking an avoidable hit or otherwise, you'll top them up a little bit and protect them even further. Level 90, Blade of Faith, Blade of Truth, and Blade of Valor. This is an extension to your Confiteor button. Confiteor, as we know, is a massive AoE strike for 920 potency under Requiescat. These are also impressively strong. After hitting Confiteor, the button will change into Blade of Faith. Hitting Faith changes it to Truth, and hitting Truth changes it to Valor. So all wrapped into one button. All 3 of these will restore HP at 400 potency, and are the same size 5 yalm AoE centered on a target. These have a very weak base potency like Confiteor, but a very strong Requiescat potency. Along with Confiteor, all 4 of our Requiescat stacks are now spoken for. In order, these will do 720, 820, and 920 base damage with 60% fall off. The first 2 hits are weaker than Confiteor, but still far above our other attacks. Be careful you don't hit other attacks after Confiteor. If you start your main combo before using your blade attacks, the combo will be lost, and the powerful hits with it. Despite the animations, these are still spells and can be used at range like Holy Spirit and Confiteor. That makes them very good for downtime. While this toolkit has increased our power, it's all essentially just potency boosts across the board. Expiacion is an AoE now, and the blade combo just replaces Holy Spirit and Holy Circle in the Requiescat portion of the opener. I've made the images for them, but that's as far as we're going over them. Just be sure you're using Expiacion in AoE, where before it was okay to skip it. Dawntrail is going to further this potency boosting trend, but we'll add one new thing to throw into our opener and rotation. Level 92, Sentinel Mastery and Guardian. Sentinel is getting a nice boost to help you stay alive. Firstly, the damage reduction has increased to 40%. Secondly, you get a 15-second long shield with a 1000 potency heal, so the amount of healing a single use of Clemency would give as your reference point. It's a nice bonus, the extra defense off of Guardian making it worth even more. Level 94, Melee Mastery 2. Potency boosts and a lot of them. Notably, Confiteor and our final blade combo hit are now 1000 potency each. Level 96, Requiescat Mastery and Imperator. Much like Spirits Within, Requiescat is getting the AoE treatment. You now do 580 potency to your current target, with a 5-yalm AoE splash hitting all surrounding enemies for 232 potency. Other than perhaps how you aim it in AoE, something you already were doing to aim Confiteor and the Blade combo, this changes nothing. Level 100, Enhanced Blade of Valor, and Blade of Honor. This is technically a finishing move on top of our Blade combo. After using Blade of Valor, you will get Blade of Honor ready to use at some point in the next 30 seconds. This turns Imperator into Blade of Honor. It has the same power and range as Confiteor and Blade of Valor, that being 1000 potency with a 60% drop-off. The difference with this is that Blade of Honor is an OGCD. You can weave this in immediately after Blade of Valor without delaying your next GCD in any way. Typically that next GCD is Goring Blade, so it would not delay Goring. You're already aiming this how you need to because of the attacks before it. Just be sure you weave it in as soon as you get it. You do have a few GCDs of leeway though, as the main thing is getting it in under Fight or Flight. This leads us back to our opener. Being our final opener, I'm going to do an overview of the full opener from the beginning. This will act as a review and tie everything together. Remember that no mitigations are shown in openers due to this being a generally applicable opener. Mitigations are much more tailored per fight than openers. Iron Will is going to be put up at the start of every dungeon. You will only sometimes put it on for trials and raids. It doesn't really matter overall who main tanks in casual content, just don't fight to be the main tank. We'll open the fight with Holy Spirit. On a countdown timer, we'll start casting the spell shortly after the 2 appears. It takes just under 2 seconds for the attack to connect, when also factoring in cast time. Run in as the cast finishes to immediately fast blade into Riot Blade. Beyond this point, most jobs will start using their party buffs, meaning all further attacks are going to be buffed. That is why we'll finish our combo and launch into our main burst. Royal Authority will have us weave in Fight or Flight and Imperator. This will buff Imperator itself too. With Imperator used, we can move into the Confiteor and Blade combo, taking the bulk of our opener's GCDs. After Confiteor, we'll weave in Circle of Scorn and Expiacion for the extra damage. From there, we weave in Intervene between GCDs. We will ignore one or both of these uses if the fight demands us to use gap closes for some reason. Thanks to Holy Spirit being a very good ranged move, this is not quite as required, but still good to do. After Blade of Valor, immediately Blade of Honor to make sure you use it. We do have a few GCDs of buffs left, but you have no reason to hold it unless you'd hit multiple targets by waiting. With our major burst over, we'll move into Goring Blade, which is our strongest remaining attack, then our Atonement combo. Doing this before our Divine Might Holy Spirit means Sepulchre will be under Fight or Flight. We're picking and choosing what attacks we want in our buffs, and this order gets us the best benefit. After our Holy Spirit finishes our burst, we'll move into the filler phase until our next Fight or Flight. I'm not going to go over the filler again, just showing the image. Just remember, we're aiming to fit in the 3 best filler GCDs we can into our Fight or Flight. This GCD ordering making it easier to achieve. Now we can go into the Karaoke Opener. Karaoke Openers are where I will say the name of every skill as they are used in the opener. This will hopefully give you a better idea of the pace and flow of the opener. Though beware that with longer skill names and how Paladin likes to double weave, you'll be hearing skill names interrupt each other quite a bit. Pre-pull, Iron Will if relevant, Holy Spirit, Fast Blade, Riot Blade, Royal Authority, Fight or Flight, Imperator, Confiteor, Circle of Scorn, Expiacion, Blade of Faith, Intervene, Blade of Truth, Intervene, Blade of Valor, Blade of Honor, Goring Blade, Atonement, Supplication, Sepulchre, Holy Spirit. As mentioned before, our opener hasn't been really changing. Adding in one skill for AoE is hardly a big change. Just use Blade of Honor as soon as possible when you get it. AoE is much more time sensitive due to stuff potentially melting and dying before you even use Blade of Honor. Remember to wait to burst until you finish the wall to wall, pop some mitigation, and go to town. Paladin is quite simple overall, but has a bit of optimizing you could do for filler to make your bursts just that bit stronger. You're also given more ranged options than any other tank, giving you flexibility in your movements. Don't have to worry about losing uptime if you have such big range. Just stop spamming Clemency. Thank you for watching this Paladin 1 to 100 leveling skills guide. Feel free to give feedback or ask questions on what might still be confusing to you. I am always seeking to improve, as should you. Don't stop with this guide, even if I succeeded in helping you improve. Please leave a rating, comment, sub, those really do help creators. You can also come watch me on Twitch, or even go follow my Patreon. The links in the description will take you where you need to. Have fun in your adventures across Tyrol, and may the power of Anne and Nidhogg stay waste to your enemies.